Well, good morning, our beloveds, our another just awakened. Not in the true sense of the word, but in the physical sense of the word. She is just awakened from a deep slumber right now, and she overslept, and she's getting her bearings. She's having to figure out what's what because somehow right now the world feels off because she overslept. She feels like she's out of time. She has to get her bearings. Her dream distorted her perception of reality. And yes, we mean the actual dream, not just the dream state. And this is so analogous to awakening to who you really are in your physicality. So many of you still slumber deeply, believing your sleep state to be your real state. And there are so many layers to that statement. But once you awaken in your dream state or from your dream state, things feel different. Have you all ever heard of lucid dreaming? Where in your dream state, you are not a master of the universe. And what we mean by that, in the dream state, the stories are oftentimes otherworldly, with abilities and storylines that really make no sense in the real world as you perceive it. And there are so many aspects where you or others have superpowers, or the world is not really real and sound because locations can change, people can morph. It is an altered experience of reality. And yet, when you awaken from your slumber state, in the physicality within which you find yourself, and you begin to awaken to the real laws of the universe, which is that there is an unseen world beside gravity and radio waves, that there are energies or entities that live side by side with you, next to you, around you, who simply reside in a frequency that you cannot see, similar to a dog whistle that you cannot hear. You are cohabitating with other energies, and you have the ability to perform magic that many of you were taught was evil or sinful. But is it evil or sinful to turn the stove on and to boil a pot of water? It's simply the laws of physics. You put a pot on there with the liquid inside and turn on the burners and let the energy do the rest of the work, where it brings something, even potentially from a frozen state, to a gaseous state if you didn't turn the burner off. It is the energy which is creating the magic. You simply are using the tools and the knowledge that you have to boil water. Would you say that that is magic and that you should be burned at the stake because you have somehow changed the nature of an ice block to a boiling liquid? Does that mean that you have witchcraft skills? Or does it simply mean that you are harnessing the properties of those objects or items around you for your benefit and sometimes for the harm of others or your own? We wish for people to understand the unseen energies and how that all participates in the building or the designing of your life. That when you set an intention, you are creating an energetic imprint within you, which from one perspective could be that before you were a frozen energetic imprint. And by changing your energy, by turning the energy on around you, you are melting the state within which you find yourself. And you are changing it to a liquid and then into a boiling liquid. And if left unattended to, if you will, into a gaseous state. What that means is that when you get to the end of the awakening period, you simply just turn into pure light and you exist no more. Doesn't that sound like the ascension? Jesus is coming back, or another does not know other theologies, and that is why we are limited to her vocabulary. When Jesus comes the second time, and his followers and his believers are taken away, have you ever given thought to maybe it's just what Buddha and Buddhas have learned long ago? That if you become a being of light, you cease to exist here, and the heathens are left behind, right? Just give it some thought. We're not telling you that we're right and that you're wrong. We're just saying maybe if you explore those energies around you, you will understand the nature, the physics of the world within which you reside. And maybe you will begin to expand a little bit out of that sinful nature that you have been told that you are, that limits your ability to ever use tarot or other divination tools. Who prays not from the perspective of, I'm a sinner, please don't cast me to hell, but instead says, I am a divine being of Christ, and I wish to know more about the real Christ, not the one who others tell me that he died for my sins, but instead who came to teach me about myself, that I am a being of light, that I am a being of magic. He said all these things in the Bible, but the Christian church has shared that this is a different interpretation, that this is a sinful interpretation. So now the people are telling you what Jesus was really saying when you could just ask Jesus within your heart what he was saying. And then don't believe man, but believe the God or the Christ consciousness within you that reminds you of how loved you are and how loved you have always been. It is simply energy. And when you are told that you are a sinner, you simply vibrate at a lower vibration because you believe that you are not good enough and therefore need to be saved. It is a ploy, it is a trick to keep you malleable. And not like many have said, but it is literally a vibrational thing. When you think about a war between dark and light, by telling you that you are a sinner, you actually become an agent of the dark and not the light, because you vibrate at a dark vibration and then allow or cause others to vibrate at a dark vibration because you tell them too that they are a sinner, making them feel like they really are lesser than they have ever been. Jesus said, come ye to me, little children, right? He wants you to have the belief and the faith of a little child who could never understand a hell or a heaven, just a loving God, because that is the innocence of a child. To be told that you are a sinner has to be taught. It is not an inherent knowing. And if you are creatures of Christ, you would be born with that knowing. A loving God wouldn't deny you that. A loving God would not tell you that you are going to hell unless a few people cross your paths to save you. It makes no sense. Which part of the world that you're born in shouldn't dictate whether or not you go to heaven or to hell based on the belief systems from that region. It is illogical. It is irreverent in many ways. Find it, believe it, seek it, know it, trust it, but most importantly, live it. Ask yourselves what it feels like when you say, I am a perfect being in Christ that has never needed to be saved. I am a perfect being in Christ who has never needed to be saved. I am of God. I am with God. I am God. How does that feel? Which of those words feels like truth and which one feels like untruth? And that is where your work lies. When you have been told that you are a sinner and are separated from the divine, it is simply that you are still asleep. You haven't awakened to the truth. And how does that feel when you are having a dream or a nightmare? And it is so surreal and unloving. And then you wake up and you have that disjointed experience of coming back into who you really are. And it disrupts you for a bit. It really does. And for many of you, for longer periods, depending upon the nature of the dream. But once you settle back in, you know who you really are and what the laws of physics really are. That dream state that you were in was not real. But what if that dream state is as real as your awakened state in the current status of your life? And when you really awaken to who you are, you come out of this slumber and begin to explore what the real realities, the real laws of this current existence is. And it's simply quantum physics. Google it, research it, watch a few videos just to open your eyes to what really is occurring. Most of you don't know this other than those who are into this esoteric way of life. But for the others, just Google quantum physics and see how that changes your perspective on reality. Because when some of the smartest people can't figure it out and say there is dark matter, the void, points of creation, an ever-expanding universe, what does that tell you about the limited God that you have been raised with? That it's not an accurate representation, no matter what your religion, other than a few who teach these esoteric ways of life. But the majority are here to help humanity by controlling humanity for purposes beyond your comprehension and knowledge right now. It's that simple. It has always been a war in your eyes of light against dark, but you have been misrepresented as to who you are and who the real players are and the why of it all. It's not about your souls as you think. It's something vastly different. But we wish not to tell you what that is. We wish for you to explore it yourselves. You can come to your own understanding of reality. Stop listening to conspiracy theorists and stop listening to the government. They each have an agenda. Find your own explanation as to what is what. And so it is. Namaste.